And I'm super happy actually today of having here as well Emanuela Rondi together with myself, touching upon a key topic regarding family businesses and the next generation, basically. The title for today, as many of you might know already, is Passing the Baton, so welcoming the next generation into your family enterprise. So we gonna kind of briefly, gonna give you a brief intro about Emanuela and myself, then we can delve slightly onto what we do as Trusted Family. Many of you might know, some others are quite new to the company. And then I will leave the word and the floor then to Emanuela for her to kind of delve deeper into different topics that are part of this webinar. So basically, let me share my screen so we can have a kind of a brief guideline. So here it is. Today we have here it is. So basically, it's myself and Emanuela Rondi, as mentioned. Many of you might already know her by her reputation and her roles. Some of you might get to know her today. Emanuela Rondi, she's an associate professor in management at the University of Bergamo. She's as well academic coordinator of the Next Gen Summit for Family Business Network International, also permanent chair of the research development program of IFERA, which is the International Family Enterprise Research Academy. She's also international research coordinator of the Family Office Observatory from the Polytechnic of Milano. She's research affiliate of the Center for Family Business Management at the Free University of Bolzano, and she's member of the Academic Advisory Board at the International Family Enterprise Center at the Taylor's University in Malaysia. Her products of her research basically were published in international top-ranked journals, and also she's been recently published as a co-author together with Alfredo De Massis in the book The Family Business Book: A Roadmap for Entrepreneurial Families to Prosper Across Generations. Emanuela, warm welcome. Super happy and great to have you here today. So basically,
hello, Enrico.
Great that we can hear you well as well. That's good. Many times, sometimes when one starts a webinar, there's always technical issues. So here it is. Basically, I'm gonna give you a brief introduction of Trusted Family. Myself, I'm director for Trusted Family, covering mainly the EMEA market. So I have the company growing, and I come from a family business background myself. Been working throughout the years in different industries across family businesses and the financial industry, and today helping and working into this amazing sphere of family businesses, basically. And Trusted Family, what is? It's a company that was born and started for bring innovation into family enterprises. And that's why we have this kind of breakthrough sentence when we say, like, when heritage meets innovation, family enterprises thrive. And our key idea for Trusted Family is that, you know, while you go across generations, things get tougher and tougher to keep the family business consolidated within the family. And that's why there's always we divided into 3 generations in this slide, saying that there's the first generation, that is the one who creates, then there's the second generation, which is the one who then scales, and then the third generation is the one who actually reinvents, and so keeps, you know, that entrepreneurial mindset for the family and for the family business, basically. And actually, Trusted Family was really an idea and a company that started by 2 next gens from 2 different families. You can see on the left, Eduard Thyssen from the Aliaxis Group, Belgian multinational company. And then on the right, you can see Edouard Jonsen, again, a Solvay group, and another multinational company. And both of them, they were next gen members, and they realized that, you know, the participation to the family group, the communication within the family, the coordination together with the family office, with the board, with the family council, and all of those kind of, let's say, institutional or kind of organizations that are around the family wealth, wasn't really well and working and dynamic. And so they said, you know what, let's create a tool for ourselves that helps us into managing all this information sharing, participation, engagement better. And so back in 2007, they created the product for themselves. Then things started flourishing, going very well. So they founded a company. And then like you can see the timeline there, throughout the years, things started growing well. And today we basically work more or less with around 210 families globally around the world. And our key point is always, answering the continuous universal challenges that are behind the family businesses, enterprising families. You can see really here a graph that shows, well, at the center you have the family wealth, and around it you have all the different kind of organizations that are part of the family wealth. And the key idea is having a digital platform to have all of these organizations collaborating and working well together. And so having the kind of the central hub for the family. This is what we do at Trusted Family. And today's topic goes actually into one of the key challenges, which is kind of next gen preparation and planning an entry and exit strategy. Emanuela is going to touch a bit more upon that actually. And so really building that family legacy for the next generation. The company, we do this by having obviously a digital platform that we create for each family is tailored and is always specific to the case of the family. We always try to assess. Then we have a family success pillar, which is a team of advisors actually internally that they help the families thrive and work well with the platform. So they build projects together with the platform. They make sure that the platform is going to be actually successful, and so that the family can be successful in the long term. And they work a lot as well together with the advisors of the family and with all the other organizations that are around the family. And then obviously we have this family community across our clients that they always want to share information, understand better from other clients, how they're leveraging the platform, how things are working well, how they're planning the next generation engagement, and so on. And here I brought a little use case that happens often for families, which is the concept of next gen education. How can the platform be used to leverage, used and leveraged for that next generation education? And so there you can do many different things on the platform, obviously, but then talking about specifically the next gen, you can talk about the future via chat. And so that can help, maintaining the dynamic engagement. You can have that educational content, having it all centralized into one single platform, which becomes like, the app or the mobile version of it. And you can have the next generation really seeing it, what they need to, educate themselves on, which is always tough to maintaining the next generation on the spot of that education. And then you can measure improvement. So really understand how they're grasping that educational path and how that is working. And then you can plan progress, obviously. And so like scheduling meetings and so on. This is just part of some of the activities and features that you can find on the platform. But then I think central is to go more on and delving deeper into the topic of today for this webinar, which is obviously, common challenge across all family businesses is always, transitioning the business from the senior generation to the next generation. And so it's key and paramount, obviously, to develop a strategy to do this in the most effective way for families so that they can, achieve the key success for themselves and then thrive really across generation. And I think on this, I can bring and leave the floor more to Emanuela, as is gonna touch upon 3 key bullet points that you might have found on the description of this webinar. And Emanuela, the floor is all yours. Super excited of hearing all your learnings throughout and concrete experience on this topic.
Thanks a lot, Enrico, and thanks to Trusted Family for inviting me today for this webinar. Let me just briefly share my screen and tell me whether you can see the slides. Is it working?
I can see them perfectly, yes.
Okay, great. So the title of this session is Passing the Baton, Engaging the Next Gen Entrepreneurial Family. And this is a topic that I devoted my research for. So since the PhD until today, I spent the last 10 years working on the topic of family business, entrepreneurial family, and especially devoting my attention to the next gen and their pathways in engaging in entrepreneurial family activities. And this started from a very traditional model that has been introduced by Tajuri and Davis in 1986 that is quite widespread nowadays in how we depict the concept of family business. It's a 3-circle model where we have the family system, the management system, and the ownership system. So the owners of the family business, that can be also family members, and maybe they are also engaged in the management of the business. And here we distinguish among different types of stakeholders that deal with the family business itself. And this model is very powerful for a family business in understanding the vast diversity of the needs and goals of the stakeholders involved in the family business. However, this is a model that is very focused on the family firm. And it's a little bit limiting the approach that the entrepreneurial family can have in grasping the characteristics that the entrepreneurial family has to deal with, especially when we talk about managing wealth, managing more than one family business, and also with the different organization that can emerge when the family grows and when it goes on with the different generations. So according to that, we can reflect about the evolution of the stages of family development by considering that at the beginning, especially in the founder generation, the family, the ownership, and the management very often overlap. So there is a strong overlap among these different systems. And then we move on with the sibling partnership and housing consortium. So you're like second, third generation. And here you start disentangling the governance systems across the ownership, the business, the management, and the family itself. And here you develop, for instance, shareholder agreements, and you start thinking about family charters to develop the kind of smoothing the relationships among family members. But at some point, when the family structure gets complicated and also the constellation of organization that the family masters is increasing, then the three-circle model becomes a little bit too simple in order to grasp all the interests that the family has in terms of ownership governance, corporate governance, and family governance. For instance, here, the family might have developed the family office, or you can also have family foundations for philanthropy. So the complexity of the entrepreneurial family and its ecosystem increases, and so has to increase the structure of the governance and the system through which the entrepreneurial family deals with its interests. And therefore, we introduce this concept of the entrepreneurial family galaxy. First of all, by bringing the entrepreneurial family back to the center. So by positioning the entrepreneurial family at the core of this system, a position that allows the family to deal with the different organization. At some point in the beginning, there might even be just a family firm, but already considering that the family firm is one of the potential organizations wherein the family has its interests. Then the organization might increase. You can have a second family firm, or you can create a family holding. So the complexity already starts grasping other elements in the entrepreneurial family galaxy that are still part of the interests of the entrepreneurial family, but are increasing in terms of complexity. And then you might also develop the family office in order to deal with the investments and the wealth management of the family. And we can even develop a family academy. I will talk more about that later, but bear with me for a second. This might be an organization, formal or informal, that is devoted to the development of the next generation. So it's the organization that cures the aspects that relate in terms of activities, in terms of pathways for the next gen engagement in entrepreneurial family. And maybe at a very higher degree of complexity, I don't want to make you afraid about this complexity of the structure, but I can ensure that there are many entrepreneurial families that have this kind of complex degree of interests around the world, and maybe they are not even aware about how complex their family galaxy is. It happened to me in many workshops using this model that at the beginning entrepreneurial families were like, yeah, but this structure is too complex for us. And then they started reflecting, and it's like, okay, but actually we have a real estate company. Oh yes, we also have a foundation for philanthropy. And sure, we have also a trust company for curing our interests. And suddenly they realize how complex is the constellation of the organization that compose the ecosystem without even realizing that. And the problem of not realizing it is that there is no synergy across these organizations. They are kind of managed as isolated organizations without taking a systemic perspective that places the entrepreneurial family at the center and understand how to coordinate, how to make them part of a larger project of the entrepreneurial family, Also thinking about the status quo. So what are the current organizations that are present in the entrepreneurial family, and what might be the potential one that can be developed in order to cure and to take care of the interests of the entrepreneurial family in the long run. So it's also a dynamic model that allows the entrepreneurial family to envision the target of the structure of its entrepreneurial galaxy and how they what they want to achieve and where they want to be. And then there are two different forces that keep this galaxy all together. On one side, there is the family ability, which are all the capabilities, the resources, the characteristics of the family that they have been developing throughout the generations potentially, and that allows the family to deal with these different interests. And on the bottom, you see the family willingness. So it's the disposition of the family to keep the entrepreneurial family all together. So whether there is the intention and the willingness for the entrepreneurial family to stick together and to keep those organizations as part of their ecosystem, as part of their galaxy. So without these centripetal forces of the ability and willingness that the family needs to nurture throughout the generations, the entrepreneurial family galaxy might collapse, because there is the lack of intention of the family to cure its interest as united in the long run. So with this in mind, with this view of what an ecosystem for the entrepreneurial family in terms of entrepreneurial family galaxy might be, we can deal with different dimensions that can help the family to understand the characteristics of their galaxy in terms of current status and potential future status. The first element is the mass. So what are the potential resources, how to acquire them from outside the galaxy, and how can we as a family grow and preserve internal resources to coordinate them across the different organizations. So this is the mass of the galaxy of the entrepreneurial family. Second element is the shape. What are the number, what is the size, and the disposition of the organization in the galaxy. So whether they are closer or far to the entrepreneurial family centrum, whether the family wants to keep this organization closer to itself. Think about family business groups, for instance, where they have a portfolio of business. There are some legacy businesses that the family wants to keep closer to itself, but other more satellite businesses that are less in the interest of the legacy of the family. Still, they are part of the portfolio of businesses. Then we have the level of luminosity. So what is the contribution to value creation of each galaxy organization in terms of financial and also social-emotional wealth? Social-emotional wealth is a characteristic of family firms that is related to the level of attachment that the family has toward its organization in terms of identification, how much the family identify itself by being by having in the wealth the possibility of mastering some businesses or part of the patrimonial legacy. Social-emotional wealth also refers to the control that the family can exert toward the businesses, toward the organization, the foundations, the family office, and also the emotional element that the family extracts from being part of this organization. And there is another element which is very important in terms of such emotional wealth, which is the intention to transfer this wealth toward the next generations. And not all the family has the same level of intention. So this is a degree of luminosity that you can understand what is the level of financial and such emotional intention to contribute to the future of the family galaxy. Third element is the regeneration rate, which is the speed at which the family creates new organization. We very often hear this motto, which is one entrepreneur in every generation. What is the speed at which the family is able to create new organization, launching new businesses, launching new social initiatives that are dealing with philanthropic or non-profit intentions, and therefore you create a new organization, as well as it propagates new family members. So the regeneration rate of the family itself, how much this is a family that is able to ignite the power of the galaxy through the generation of new family members. So the creation of new generations that will prosper throughout time. And last is the distance from the center. So how close the family and its organization are close to the centrum of this organization, as close to the sun that we see at the center of this ecosystem, or how far they are from the center. So these are all elements that characterize a family entrepreneurial galaxy. And it's important also to consider that there is a dynamic view through which you can observe this model by considering what is the current mass, shape, luminosity, regeneration rate, and distance from the center, and how do we as a family envision this model for the future. Interestingly, when you ask an entrepreneurial family to design, we did this in some workshops, to design their entrepreneurial galaxy, different family members come up with very different draws of what the galaxy is for them. And part of the exercise in order to stimulate the entrepreneurial family to prosper across generation is to co-create a common vision for the future of the entrepreneurial galaxy. How can we co-create and design the entrepreneurial family of galaxy of the future? What is the role that our entrepreneurial family wants to play in the galaxy in the future? And to do so, we need to make sure that we design 3 key elements of the entrepreneurial family galaxy. The first is to understand what are the goals. So what are our aims? What are our goals? And the literature and the research on family business has identified some characteristic goals that the entrepreneurial family pursue, which are the family-centered non-economic goals. So beside the willingness to pursue goals that relate to the growth of the business, increase the revenues, increase the market share of the business, increase the good climate also for the employees, which are goals that relate to any kind of business without involving a family. Family business that as an entrepreneurial family involved also have different types of goals. For instance, maintaining the control of the family on the business, or maintain family members involved, potentially even in the management of the business. For some families, this is an important element, or maintaining the ownership majority in the hands of the family. So these are elements that are specific to the, let's say, economic goals that are family related. But then there is another type of goals, which are the family-centered non-economic goals, which relate to the fact that the family wants to maintain a harmony in the family relationships, that it wants to maintain the involvement of next generations in the family business. And these are characteristics that are not economically related, not business related, but are goals that the family itself pursue. And so they are distinctive. And it's important to understand, especially according to the entrepreneurial family galaxy model, how you want to pursue the different goals across the different organizations. Because as far as there is one single family business for the family, this is the place where the family transfers all its goals: financial, non-financial, economic, non-economic, family-related, non-family related. But where the complexity of the structure of the entrepreneurial family increases, then the diversification of these goals increases. And so which type of goals do we pursue in each organization? And maybe at some point in the past, when the structure of the galaxy was quite simple, the non-economic, non-family-centered goals of philanthropy was pursued within the family business. But at some point, the entrepreneurial family creates a foundation for these goals. And therefore, there is a distinction between what goals we pursue in the family business that is more oriented on the impact that you have in terms of corporate social responsibility, and the philanthropy that you pursue as a family, creating its own foundation. So disentangling these goals allows the family, entrepreneurial family, to tie up the organization within the galaxy. Another key element of this model is the allocation of resources. So what resources do we want to allocate? What resources we want to extract from the organization? And another element is the governance. The governance structure needs to be construed according to the goals and resources that are available. So the formalization, very often also consultants suggest to create a governance structure without having a clear understanding of what are the goals and what are the resources available in the different organizations. So there is a kind of inversion of the characteristics that you want to start from, governance formalization, and then understanding the content of this governance. Here we suggest to do the opposite. So you start from the goals and objectives of the entrepreneurial family, you identify the resources that are available there, and then you construct a governance system that takes into account business governance, corporate governance, and more important in the entrepreneurial family, the family governance. So what are the characteristics of the governance of the entrepreneurial family that deal with the family system? For instance, setting up a family council, having a family assembly where the family can be heard in its interests that may be related to the business, but mainly in the family council, what you discuss is something that cannot be discussed in the business governance, for instance, in the board of directors or in the ownership council. The family council, it's a place where it is, and this is the main topic of our conversation, the next generation pathways are identified. How our family can support the engagement of next generation. This is a conversation that the family council should tackle, and also organize activities that have the target of next generation members. We will see more in details in the next few minutes. But what is important is that according to this model and the model of the galaxy, you can distinguish goals, governance, and resources within the single organization in the galaxy. But even more important is to design the interface among them. So how do the different goals are disentangled across the organization? How do governance structure are created? But even how do they create this interface? How do they exchange information? So, for instance, the fact that there is a platform like Trusted Family that allows you to coordinate across these different organizations is an important tool that the family can use in order to coordinate the exchange of information across the different organizations by understanding what are the information that can be disclosed, what instead are the information that each organization need to be kept internal, and ensure that the information is transparent and the flow of information are clear. So there is the need of designing a strategy for understanding how this flow of resources, information are in communication. What are these interfaces that are created? For instance, you might have on one side family firm governance, distinguished between board of directors, top management team. And on the other side, you have the family governance, represented here by the family council. So for sure, there are interests that are within the organization, so internal to the organization. For the board of directors, the main goals are setting the firm's vision and directions, monitoring firm performance, making strategic decisions. And then we have the top management team that are more active on a routine base in the business itself, which has the role of managing firm operations and function. On the other side, you have the family council that needs to educate the next gen, being custodian and transfer the family legacy, and also nurturing the family harmony and relationships. But these two governance bodies need to be in communication, because structuring in the family galaxy governance bodies that work as an island, isolated from themselves, create more problems than not having these governance bodies, because they work as silos and they don't exchange information. So in order to coordinate these interfaces, for instance, here, they need to ensure that entrepreneurial families will be prosperous across the generation. and also having a clear communication between family owners and firm members. So to ensure that there is this exchange of information and there is a clear communication. Interfaces are crucial on this matter. So that then you can have a configuration that this is just an example of how you can coordinate the different organization in the galaxy. You might have here the family council curing the different interests of the family governance. You can have inside that a family council board and committees that are devoted, for instance, to next gen, for the family communication, or for the family entrepreneurship within the family realm. Then you might have a shareholder group that takes care of the ownership governance. Aside, you have the wealth governance that needs to be in communication with the family governance and also with the ownership governance potentially, or a foundation. If in your country this can be a for-profit foundation, it depends also on the regulation that you have in your country. The shareholder group is also in communication with the holding. That includes a board of directors, so it's more a corporate type of governance, a holding company governance. And underneath, you have different family firms where you have the specific firm governance. So if you don't design the interface of how these governance bodies need to get in communication among them, it's impossible for the entrepreneurial family galaxy to work as an ecosystem. Whereas if there is a clear flow of communication, clear flow of resources, understanding what is under the responsibility of the different governance bodies here, and also what are the different goals that each of them needs to pursue, there is the possibility for the entrepreneurial family to prosper across generation in a clear understanding of how the ecosystem works together. However, we know that being part of an entrepreneurial family might be very complex. There are tensions that need to be tackled. The first is the tension between willingness and ability. We saw that before in terms of the centripetal forces that keep the galaxy together. You might be able to work together in terms of allocating resources, but you're not willing to do so. So potentially because the family doesn't have good relationships. And so it's hard to make decisions altogether. There might be tension in terms of already by definition in the concept of family versus business, because the logics that are at play are different. In the family, there is this concept of equity, equality. In the business, there is a concept of meritocracy. So not always these logics work together. The tension between togetherness and separateness, because the family wants to be united, but at the same time, they don't want to limit the autonomy and independence of their members. There is a tension between tradition and innovation, looking at the past and the legacy, but also looking at the future and innovation. The tension in terms of communication, we just mentioned that, transparency and secrecy. How do we deal with the information flows? Who can access to what information? Information in the family business, in entrepreneurial family, is power. Access to information is crucial because the level of transparency that you want to guarantee allows the family not to develop expectations that are misaligned among family members. But at the same time, it's not possible for all family members to access to all information. So there is the need of equilibrium. Tension between equity and equality itself. Allocating the same to everyone or allocating resources in relation to the needs. This is an important question for families and their businesses. Guaranteeing control and autonomy. And this is also relevant for the family business itself. Do we want to control the family business and exert a strong influence on it? Or do we want to leave the autonomy also to our managers to make decisions in running the business? And here we come more on the next gen side, the tension between roots and wings. We provide our children the possibility to, for instance, studying abroad, living in other countries, and making their own experience. So we give them wings. But at the same time, we would like them to come back to the family business and run the family business at our place. So sometimes there is the opposite attitude. So we want to keep our children close, so we don't give them the opportunity to make experience outside our comfort zone. But this means that their mindset will be like close-minded according to the place where also the former generation have experienced and lived. So how do we manage this tension? If we give them the opportunity, maybe they don't want to come back. But if we don't give them this opportunity, they might be just path dependent according to what has been done so far. And then a tension between commitment and competence. For instance, during succession, you might have a very committed successor, but that doesn't have the skills and competencies. And on the other side, there might be family members that are very rich in terms of competence, but they don't have the commitment to come back and run the family business. And finally, there is a tension between liquidity and growth. Do we want to extract the dividends from family business? Do we want to keep them inside the family business to nurture the development of the business? Or even extremely, do we want to go through a liquidity event and so sell the family business? Or do we want to invest in its regeneration? We mentioned about that in terms of third generation. Very often, when you get to the third generation, the decision to shut down the business or to sell it to private equities or other investors, it's an important tension in the family. So these are just some of the tensions that family business are dealing with, and the equilibrium that they need to find. It's very important because it's a matter of the future and the prosperity of the entrepreneurial family itself. And here comes the need to design next generation pathways for welcoming and engaging the next generation within the entrepreneurial family. So there might be different entry styles for successors to enter into the business. And we place a lot of attention in how we need to take care, how we need to make them engage in the family business. But very often there is less attention on the exit style of the incumbents. So we keep telling our next gen that they have the opportunity to enter in the family business, that they need to understand what they want to do in their career. But at the same time, we don't make room for them to have a space in our organization that they can really understand, they can be enrolled and empowered of having a role in our entrepreneurial family. In terms of successor entry styles, so next generation entry style, you can have different roles for next gen. So when we stick to the 3-circle model, it looks like the next generation needs to understand whether they want to get into the family business or not, as if it is a yes or no decision. Actually, if you take the perspective of the entrepreneurial galaxy, of the entrepreneurial family galaxy, here you can see how many different roles next generation can play that are in the interest of the entrepreneurial family. For instance, you might have next generation that want to launch new organization in the galaxy, or that want to improve and renew existing organization, or those that who want to coordinate and manage current assets, or that want to develop family aspirations for having positive social impact or cultural initiatives, so more a philanthropic impact type of involvement, or even guardians as catalysts of activities for the family cohesion and unity to sustain the family legacy. It's important that in an entrepreneurial family, there is a diversity among the next gen in terms of the type of entry style that they want to pursue. And if we go away from the idea that is a yes or no decision, entry or not in the family business, but is instead a decision about how I want to play a role in my entrepreneurial family galaxy, how can I contribute to the entrepreneurial family galaxy? Even if I'm not interested in working for the family business, I'm still part of this family. I'm still part of as a representative of the family, even just as an ambassador of my family when I work in another business. So there is not a definition of a yes or no decision, but it's more like a how I can contribute. And on the other side, I mentioned that it's important also to pay attention to the exit styles and understanding how the family can design the exit pathways for incumbents. Also here, there are different styles. There might be the emperor, that they don't have any retirement plan, and they might announce it, but in reality, succession will take place at their death. It's very extreme, but working with family business worldwide, I realized that this is still a pervasive type of exit style. There might be ambassadors that embrace a more representative role for their family outside the galaxy, and they might work in taking care of the networks outside the business activities of the family. So they work really as family ambassadors. They might be mentors, so they might retire from executive roles, but remain a point of reference for successors and provide advice for important decisions. Or explorers. So they retire from the organization they served for their career, and they might launch new ones. So even incumbent can exit and become entrepreneur in other sectors, or investing in different types of organizations. And finally, there are the boomerangs. This is very dangerous for family businesses. Those are the incumbent, the senior gen that decide to retire from the organization, but at some point, either because they don't find a plan B or because they don't agree with how the family business is run by the next generation, they decide to come back and take the power back. And this is very dangerous for the legitimacy of the next generation in the long run, because at some point, the next generation will take the place unless they decide to sell the business. But this boomerang effect might be detrimental also for the relationships in the family, because there is a strong delegitimation of the power that the next generation has acquired. So when we think about engaging the next gen, there is not the possibility not to look at the other side of the coin, which is the exit style. And so it's a kind of combination of both the parts that it's important for the entrepreneurial family to take care of. One way to do so is to design a family academy. And the Family Academy is one of the organizations that we saw in the Entrepreneurial Family Galaxy that creates activities in the interest of the engagement of the family, both in terms of next gen and also with senior and now gen. It's an academy that is devoted to listening and understanding among family members, for instance, through initiatives like surveys or interviews involving external third parties to understand what are their needs, what are their passions, what are the intentions that they have for the future, and mutual understanding. So taking care of the communication. Another element of the Family Academy is education. So organizing educational programs, for instance, for the next gen, in terms of what does it mean to be part of an entrepreneurial family? What are the main elements of family business management? How can we become responsible owners? These are all elements that are important, not just for the people that want to work for the family business, but at the end, if they will become shareholder, it's important that at least they understand the logics that are at place in the family business. And also, what does it mean to be a responsible owner? The Family Academy is also a venue for guidance in terms of offering the intergenerational conversation and guidance in terms of mentoring of senior gen for next gen. But there is also the reverse mentoring. So how next generation can mentor senior generation about specific aspects. One of them is, for instance, the digital transformation. So there might also be next generation competencies that can be relevant for a senior generation and that can nurture also this concept of solidarity across generations. So through the guidance, it's important also to develop and nurture the relationship itself. There might be in the Family Academy support to entrepreneurial initiatives. Some family organize entrepreneurial challenges, hackathons for designing, both in terms of entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship. So how can we design new businesses that might even become part of our family galaxy? Or how can we innovate current businesses? And for next gen, taking part of these initiatives is not just a way to understand what it means to be an entrepreneur, but also to get closer to the family business and get information, be exposed to the family business and understanding better the logics behind that. In the Family Academy, there is also an element of networking, so stimulating the family relationships inside among family members. When the family is widespread across different countries, and maybe you are an advanced generation, there are people that don't even know their family, their relatives. So it's important for the family to organize retreats, to organize the times that they spend together at least once per year, so that they can reconvene and spend time and experience and different types of initiatives together. Networking is also external to the family itself. So understanding who are the key stakeholders of the entrepreneurial family and developing these relationships. And finally, there is an element of inspiration. The inspiration element can be also a trade union across the different family members, because you can be inspired by people that have gone through very intense experiences like extreme sport people, or people that have gone through some very intense experience, that each member, even if they are managers in banks, if they are artists, if they are medical doctors, whatever is their business and their career, they can get inspired by being exposed to this intense experience. And by getting the same inspiration, people in the family might even be oriented towards similar values and goals. So altogether, designing a family academy is crucial in order to taking care of the pathways of family members across all generations, and being able to nurture this relationship and transgenerational relationships. And finally, there is an important role in the entrepreneurial family galaxy, which is the role of family creators, that differ from traditional managers, executives, and directors of the family firms, but they have the role to be the architects of the galaxy, to design their vision of the galaxy evolution, and are dedicated to making that evolution become a reality. So not just envisioning and developing something new, but also implementing this vision of the galaxy of the entrepreneurial family of the future. And so they can work on those 5 dimensions I mentioned at the beginning of the galaxy, the mass, the luminosity, and so on, in order to create a new project, a new design for the entrepreneurial family galaxy of the future, and involve the family as a whole in order to pursue this direction. So in synthesis, we mentioned that this webinar would have been about 3 main points. The concept that there is a system that goes beyond the family firm. So the entrepreneurial family galaxy is the ecosystem of values, goals, and organization through which the entrepreneurial family can enhance its value across generation. The fact that it is important to involve the next generation in the entrepreneurial families, to consider the multiple and different roles that they can play. It's not just a yes or no decision to enter in the family business, but there is a plethora of roles that next gen can play. They need to design both entry but also exit pathways, and potentially to organize a family academy. And finally, to prepare the entrepreneurial family for smooth transition into the future, it's important to define goals, governance, and resources for each organization in the galaxy, develop interfaces to make this organization communicate, and understand who are your family creators. So who are those that can be responsible of designing the entrepreneurial family galaxy of the future. Thanks a lot for your attention, and I will more than delighted to address your questions.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Emanuela. You touched upon some really interesting topics, and it's always great to see, we always like to bring together theory together with practice at Trusted Family, and you kind of brought as well some really practical examples of how to engage with the next generation and plan this passage, and super interesting model as well. Looking at the key questions that came out, there's one from Robert, which is kind of, how would you define an entrepreneurial family? So this is kind of a big question, I guess, but it's not
a very important question. Yes, it's a very important question.
Answer, so leaving it to you.
Yeah, I think that according also with the experience that I had with different entrepreneurial families, the definition of the perimeter of what an entrepreneurial family is very idiosyncratic. It really depends on the history of the family itself. For instance, there are some entrepreneurial family that consider the family as made of the people that have shares in the legacy family business, and also their relatives and their partners. So the partners and the next generation of those family. But in other family, for instance, the element of holding the shares is not as important, because I mentioned, for instance, those that develop a family office out of a liquidity event. Maybe those that have an aggregated wealth altogether, even though the family business is not there anymore, they are still part of an entrepreneurial family. So it's not necessary to have a family business to be an entrepreneurial family, but to have an entrepreneurial mindset in how you want to allocate your wealth as a family in terms of creating value for the future generation and having an impact with that specific wealth. I hope that I've addressed the question. Unfortunately, I don't have a unique question, a unique answer for this question.
It is quite a big question. That doesn't have exactly a unique answer. Absolutely. Going forward, we have another question from William, he makes a lot of compliments, and he says that he's going to buy your book, so that's super positive. And he says, well, what does your research state about dealing with minority shareholders in need of liquidity? Because this might be a topic.
This is it's a big topic, especially when you are approaching a liquidity event, because minority shareholders usually are, it also depends on whether they have voting shares or not. So the composition of the shareholder base can be complex. But here, the idea is that when you have minority shareholder, when you have a minority presence in the family business, usually you are also a little bit guided by the strategy of the majority. So in this case, for the family, it's important to maintain the unity, because sometimes the majority of shareholders decide for the exit, and maybe minority shareholders are not aligned with this idea. And we know that the permeability of the family and the business system makes some kind of task conflict escalate into relational conflict in the family side. So it's also important to take care of understanding where the specific discussion might emerge from a decision that is business related, and to take care of the relationship about how it might be avoided that this tension escalates also on the family and relational side.
Yeah. It's key on that side, actually. Going forward, actually looking at another question as well, super interesting, is what would you recommend for families that are not planning for the future or transition? What conversation can be had to get them to start thinking about the subject? Many times you have the elephant in the room, this subject. So
yes, it's a taboo subject very often. One of the reasons why this is a taboo subject, especially in some culture, is because succession is often associated with the concept of death. And so looking at the future by considering the generational transition might be a taboo topic, because it considers that some of the members of the family, they will not be there anymore. At the same time, my question is, what is at stake if we don't have this conversation? So what happens if we don't open up this conversation? Because that's even more dangerous. then what can happen if you at least start to open up and create communication about it. It's important, especially for next generation that are in family business where the concept of future is a little bit taboo, to have a critical mass. So it cannot be just one family member to open the conversation, because otherwise, according also to the system theory, it will be subject to centripetal forces. So it will be a little bit ejected from the system. But if you create a cohort of people that are all aligned in terms of interest and they want to tackle a topic, at some point it becomes inevitable that the family needs to open up this conversation. So the suggestion is try to find allies with whom you can at least try to open up this type of conversation.
Yeah. It's paramount on that. We've seen with a lot of actually of our clients in this way, that they're saying, okay, who's the conversation starter? And that's always the tough part to address it, actually. So going forward, since we still have a bit of time. No, sorry, you were going to add something.
No, I was mentioning that especially if you have one specific starter, then it can be like, oh, you wanted to start this conversation. You are a little bit the one who created the noise. But if it is a cohort of people that started being interested in tackling this topic, then it becomes harder to shut this conversation down. So it becomes paramount to open up and be more transparent in terms of communication at that point.
From a practical perspective, actually, on our side, what I've seen many times is interesting is when you have a larger group of family, in this case, it's interesting to see how if you set certain topics to be addressed anonymously, you can then grasp the sentiment that you have across the wider family group. And in that way, then you obviously face it and understand that what's the sentiment in the family, and face the certain topics that maybe you're kind of overlooking. Obviously, this becomes tougher to be anonymous when the family group is smaller, but still, like, it's super interesting the inputs that you gave. Going forward, we have Laurence as well, who she's saying, apart from appreciating the model, saying that regarding all the governances to put in place, what about the risk of losing a bit of the flexibility and reactivity of the family business?
Well, it's a great point. You need to find a compromise. And also, the idea is that it really depends on the dimension of the family. So I'm not a big fan of overstructuring a family, an entrepreneurial family, when there are few members and potentially they are the same that inhabits the ownership governance, the family governance, the business governance. Is like wearing different hats. And at the end, it's very hard to disentangle the concept. However, when you involve, for instance, in the ownership or in the board of directors, independent directors, there you have also the perspective of non-family members. And so it's in that case, it's very useful because we mentioned it before, the family goals are different from the goals of businesses that don't involve the family. So independent directors that are non-family members, they can bring a different perspective that the family members, if they keep being in a board only made of family members, they might lose this perspective, this external perspective. So compensating this perspective with other points of view can be very important. And this can be done only if you are able to create different rooms, different governance body for the different interests. You don't want independent directors to be in the same room when you're talking about family discussions. So for this, you need another room, which is the family council, where you can bring this type of topic. Of course, if instead the family is in all the different governance bodies and it's not able to welcome different perspectives, then it becomes redundant. But that's the problem.
Absolutely. I mean, we still have a bit of time if people are bearing with us to answer the last few questions. I think there's an interesting comment here, anonymous, saying, thank you for your time, so on. But what if the principal does not want to include you in the family business, but also doesn't want to share the inheritance? What should you do in this case, especially that, let's say, the other siblings took full control on the succession planning, but not including one or two members of the family. This is a situation where there might be, talking about the tensions that we addressed earlier.
Yeah, this is a tension that refers, so the conversation is a lot about the business, but already you can see traces of the family tension that is in terms of different asymmetric treatment of family members. So there is not an element of equity and equality because family members are treated differently. And this is a very delicate situation because it means that there might be some situation on the family side in terms of conflict that have been escalated in the business side. In terms of suggestion, it's hard to address a situation like that because there might be a lot of complexity behind. But as far as I can see, the idea would be to understand, first of all, whether there are different ways to contribute to the entrepreneurial family, to show that there is interest in providing some kind of value to the entrepreneurial family, and not just to take value in terms of inheritance. So that there is this mutual exchange which can be beneficial in order of smoothing a little bit the conflict that might take a relational degree rather than a task degree in the business decisions.
Yeah, super interesting. I mean, it's always tough to address some specific examples, but you provided in a nutshell a good approach and a common practice kind of to having this kind of situation.
Yeah, it's an important, this point allows me to make an important, to raise an important element. The entrepreneurial family galaxy is a framework that allows you to envision a different way to look at the entrepreneurial family aspects and to disentangle them according to a system and organization. But it doesn't want to be a simplistic way to look at the complexity that each entrepreneurial family is dealing with. It's not a solution for all the problems. It's a way through which the family can orient itself in order to organize its interests and also to engage more family members in the creation of value than just having a decision of whether to enter or not in the family business. So the idea is to open up a different way to look at the family and the entrepreneurial family assets.
Absolutely. No, fully agree, and I can envision that fully on that side. One last question is about from Ines, and she asked, okay, family galaxy creators would be a remunerated position, and if you can share some practical examples of a successful creator.
So family creators can be a remunerated position as much as family members that serve in the family council can be remunerated or not. It really depends on how the family itself organize this role in terms of family governance. There are family council members that have a remuneration for participating in the family council meetings and for having role in the organization. In other families, this is totally a voluntary based role. So in terms of example of creators, these are people that have the leadership to influence the family. They have the visibility of the different assets that the family is mastering, which is not by definition a situation that is common. Many entrepreneurial families don't know what are the assets in the organization that they are dealing with, what is the participation of family members in those organizations. So already having a clear snapshot of the current situation is crucial. And they also need to have the vision to think ahead of generations, not just to think ahead in terms of long-term, as you might have as a private equity, in terms of like 10 years is already like a mind-blowing long-term horizon. Here in a family business, and especially when we talk about the entrepreneurial family, the long-term horizon are the children of my children. So what type of galaxy do I want to create to offer them the opportunities that I receive? And if the family is growing and in general, the family grows faster than its businesses, it means that I need to be very entrepreneurial as a creator to offer opportunities. And that doesn't mean that all next gen need to serve to the entrepreneurial family galaxy or they need to work in the organization, but at least to find rooms through which, despite the job that they are doing, if they don't, if this is not the case that they work for the family business, still they find a way to offer their contribution. Because engagement comes not just by kind of capturing the next gen and bringing them into entrepreneurial family, but valuing the contribution that they can bring.
Yeah, that's a super interesting aspect on this. Thank you for providing all these answers. Actually, there are a lot of questions as well coming up as well. I'm just gonna pick a few ones more if you still have some time. One is interesting. How can you start or attract families with a proper approach like you presented? As I see many families with quite a resistance for external advice on that, but I see it would be a great benefit for them. So this is always a key topic as well. Comes from Cyril, this one.
I think that it's true, it's hard to get the trust from families, especially when you are an external like consultant or an advisor. But it's also true that entrepreneurial families are very keen on listening about like being inspired by different ways to look at their situations. So, for instance, without the concept of selling something to them or finding solutions for all their problems, already exposing, as we did today, like I present you a framework, I'm not selling you something. But if there is something that resonates to you, maybe you might be more interested in getting in a conversation to talk about how this framework could be relevant for you, whether it can be of help in solving some of the situation that you know you are struggling with, and maybe talk about that can be already a way to start a conversation. And by getting in the conversation and showing that you are knowledgeable about the situation that they are dealing with, that you have already seen other cases dealing with similar situation, this might be a way through which you can develop that trust. So it's
Absolutely.
not, there is not a selling point, but it's more about investing time and energy in building that the trust.
Yeah. Fully agree on that. Fully agree. And one last question is, what would you say are the most critical topics to consider for each senior gen and next gen in succession planning? I think there are quite a lot.
We need another webinar at least.
Yeah, exactly.
for that. But
it's a good inspiration.
Yeah, for sure. The strong identification that senior generation have toward the business is an element that doesn't allow them to detach. Because if they feel like if I get away from the business, I feel half or maybe more of myself. So the identification is one of the main aspects. Another important syndrome is the fact that they want, well, we talk about that in the book, by the way, but it's the fact that they want a clone of themselves. So they want the next generation to replicate the same struggle and build the same competencies without realizing that the world around them has changed in the meanwhile. So the competencies that next generation need are different from those that allowed them in the past to thrive. So this is another element that can be a struggle. For next gen, it's important to understand that in terms of pathways, the decision to enter into the family business or not is not a cage, like if it is a decision yes or no, or whether I should enter in the family business or not. And also the idea of not feeling to develop the legitimacy in terms of the non-family members in the organization to understand that they are not there because of nepotism, but because they have a legitimate competencies and authoritativeness to exert that role.
From a next gen perspective, it goes really, it aligns fully with what you were mentioning earlier. saying that it's not a in or out factor, right? It's more, a how and how you can get in. And it's not just like, okay, you have to copy and be the same of the same style of the senior generation. No, super, super interesting.
Exactly.
There are quite a lot of other questions as well, but I think we'll gather them and maybe we can answer them at a later stage, or you can easily reach out to both Emanuela, myself.
Yeah. If
on
I can
LinkedIn
share, let me see. You still see my screen, right?
Yes.
Here are
Yeah,
my
yeah,
contacts. So here is my email, and I would be more than happy to continue the conversation at a later stage, offline, or having a conversation with you online in a separate meeting. Well, thanks a lot for the opportunity to discuss about this topic that are at the heart of my interest, and for offering me the space to engage with all the people that were patiently listening to us today. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for sharing both your theoretical and practical experience with all the families that you've been seeing closely throughout the years. And it was super good exchanging on this topic.